welcome back to Geek Girl TV. This is episode number 15, and I'm your Geek Girl host, Eve Park, the girl who is both beauty and the geek. Now, I've never seen that show, Beauty and the Geek, because I have absolutely no interest in reality television. Except for Who Wants to Be a Superhero, of course. Hey, Stan! I do! I can see it now. The Adventures of Geek Girl. But the title, Beauty and the Geek, and the previews I've been subjected to suggest to me that the concept of this show is to put two very different types of people together in close proximity, and comedy ensues. And the two groups of very different people we're talking about here are beautiful women and geeky guys. But the humor of this concept hinges on the preconceived notion that people that are beautiful are also ditzy, that one cannot be smart and sexy. It also puts forth the notion that geekdom is predominantly a male condition, and gets me thinking about my role as a geek girl. Since I am certainly not the only geek girl in the world, I've noticed that there are a couple different approaches to being a geek girl. Most geek girls that I've known are pretty androgynous, but I think this is often a manifestation of the shyness streak that is common in a lot of geeks. Thus, the desire to blend in with their surroundings, which in this case is usually men. Others I've known actively reject the physical manifestations of traditional beauty, for fear that it would detract from their display of mental prowess. I, on the other hand, embrace my femininity as an expression of individuality, because being a girl is often the biggest thing that sets me apart from the geeks around me. For example, when I play a friendly game of Halo, I like to make my avatar pink, because it enforces to anyone I frag that they were fragged by a girl. My keyboard and mouse used to get borrowed all the time around the house, until I got a pink set, whose purchase financially contributed to breast cancer research. Now they are mine, all mine, and no one dares touch them. Pink has a sort of voodoo magic around men that we used to call cooties. The Burning Crusade for WoW is still pretty much the top news, and I thought I would start trying to come up with a tip each week to give you. If you have any tips, please share them with me at geekgirl@clevermedia.com, and I might read them in my podcast. Anyone who plays any MMO knows that you spend a discouraging amount of time not playing your MMO. What I mean is, you spend a lot of time in maintenance, building your skills, managing your inventory, traveling from one place to another, before you can ever actually start to really play. Well, in Azeroth, there are many ways to get around, but some of them are more time-consuming or costly than others. For example, if you have a mount, you can speedily hoof it across land. You can buy a flight to a waypoint that you know. You can catch a free boat. You can use your Hearthstone. If you have a lock and two other people, they can teleport you. But did you know you could travel via Battleground? Let's say you want to start adventuring as soon as possible with your friends, but your party is spread out all over Azeroth. Well, make the party leader the person that is closest to a battleground or Ironforge. Have them sign up for a battleground as a group. Then kick off your adventure together by playing that battleground. You don't want to screw over the other people who happen to be playing the battleground with you by leaving right away. Then when you're done, you will all be ejected from the battleground in the same place, which is where the leader signed up for the battleground. The other day, I was able to travel via battleground all by myself. You see, I was an Ironforge and I needed to talk to somebody in Ratchet for a quest. Then I needed to go back to Ironforge. So what I did is I entered the battleground in Ironforge and ran all the way across the world while I was waiting to enter the battleground. I was able to do my thing before my turn at the battleground came up. I played the battleground, and when I got out, I was ejected back into Ironforge where I wanted to be. So as you can imagine, travel via battleground probably isn't something that you'll use a lot, but it's good to have in your arsenal along with everything else. In addition, when you take into consideration the time it takes to enter the battleground and the time it takes to play it, it probably doesn't end up saving you any time. But personally, I would much rather be playing a battleground than standing around waiting for a boat. I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick, but first I wanted to touch base with all of you about my favorite television shows. First thing, I want to say thank you, Sci-Fi Network. During the last year or so, they've really spread the love around the entire year. It used to be that there'd be just a couple months that had like a 4-hour marathon every Friday. And then the rest of the year, nothing. And the rest of the week, nothing. I'd like to just mention Doctor Who, even though they're not currently playing new episodes, because I really started to get into it when they got the new Doctor. And I really enjoyed the special 2-hour season finale that they had. Next, I'd like to talk about Battlestar Galactica, which I've been a huge fan of ever since they had the miniseries on Sci-Fi. Well, I've been progressively less interested in the show as time goes on. With the survival of the whole of the human race hanging in the balance, I would think that there would be something a little bit more interesting than Starbuck's little love triangle. The whole adolescent who's going steady with who thing was always the show's drawback. But I always gave it the benefit of the doubt. I figured that human relations was a major theme in Battlestar Galactica because it's part of what makes us human. But the Cylons are kind of human and they're having human relations, so does that make them human? But after episode about who Starbuck is sleeping with, I have less and less confidence that the writers have some major plan and all this is going to mean something at some point. And I'm beginning to think it's just Dawson's Creek in space. Lastly, I want to talk about Heroes. Or rather, I don't want to talk about Heroes because I have so much to say. I've been hanging on to my seat every single episode since it started. So rather than prattle on about Heroes, I want to remind you that I do an entire podcast dedicated to Heroes, along with the guys here at Clever Media. That's why I don't usually talk about Heroes on my vlog, even though I love it. Because you can hear everything I have to say about it on our Heroes cast, which you can catch along with our other programming at clevermedia.tv. See you next week. In the meantime, send me your questions, your comments, your wow tips, and what you think about the television shows I talked about to geekgirl@clevermedia.com.